Communicating with debt collectors when silence is golden. Brought to you by T-Rex Hogan at FightDebtNow.com, a resource for people being sued by debt collectors. Most people want to and should pay their bills. Not doing so punishes the people who trusted you, damages your credit, and leads down a slippery slope to financial destruction. But what happens if you can't? Catastrophes sometimes just happen. People lose their jobs, get divorced, have health issues or other problems. And face it, if the creditor is a bank or credit card, they make a pretty good living off your blood, sweat, and tears. They hoped you would have financial troubles when they lent you the money in the first place, and they designed their business to encourage you to fail and to profit when and if you do. Whatever the people running the banks or their lawyers or other spokesmen may say. They just don't want you to go too broke to pay them. If you are being hounded by bill collectors but not losing financial ground in other ways, in other words, if you got behind on some bills because something just happened out of the blue, but now the situation is better, it makes sense to try to work something out with the debt collector. Take a close look at their charges. What interest, if any, are they charging? What kind of late fees are they applying? You can negotiate any part of it away, and so can the debt collector. Take a good long look at the bills and make some rational decisions. You must treat every dollar as real money and try to make your money do as much for you as it can. When you are faced with a lot of bills, it's easy to lose the sense that each one counts. But remember this, you will pay for them all, one way or another. Every creditor can decide whether or not to report you to the credit agencies. That's purely voluntary on their part. If you are going to pay, you should get them not to report you. Every creditor or debt collector can waive or reduce interest or fees or any part of its bill. Whether they will act in your best interest, of course, remains to be seen, but you should always ask for all the help you need, if you need it. And if it looks like you'll be able to pay your bill, or most of it, you should push hard to protect your credit report and reduce extra charges. So that's if it looks like you can pay your bills. On the other hand, if you're being hounded by bill collectors and your situation is still getting worse, or it looks like you cannot pay the bills, then you should be aware of a few things. First, your continued payments extend the deadline the company will have to sue you. And while this could seem like a tactical advantage, it will almost always lead to you paying more in the long run. That's partly because creditors can continue to charge you late fees until you stop paying altogether, but then they have to stop. And it's partly because you make it possible for them to harass you for a longer time. Secondly, and probably even more importantly, if you give the collectors information about your job or bank accounts, they will use this information in their collection process, possibly calling you at your job and eventually garnishing your wages if they obtain a judgment against you. Giving them this sort of financial information as part of a bargaining process to slow them down actually makes it more likely that a debt collector will sue you, since it increases their chances of collecting on a judgment if they get one. You have to be realistic about things and when you're considering whether or not to talk to the debt collector. You should make sure that any talking you do is to your own advantage and not to the advantage of the debt collector. Remember that silence can be golden. To get more help on fighting debt collectors and their lawsuits, go to FightDebtNow.com. Get my litigation manual and forms and arm yourself to win.